because I really want to visit them. Okay, we are moving on swiftly to a project that I find utterly inspiring. Have any of you guys ever seen a glamorous, educated entourage of ladies at a Bitcoin conference or a Bitcoin meetup somewhere? I know you have. Well, they're probably, if you've seen these girls, they're probably part of Bitcoin Dada. Now, Lorraine Marcel founded this community, or this educational group, I'm not sure how to describe it, when she attended crypto meetups in 2021 and realized there was a lot of these sort of male people around and there were no women. And the best part about this is that if you look around the room today, there are a lot more women than the statistics that Lorraine brings up, which was sort of the high 90% were men and less than 10% were women. Alex Gladstein recently wrote a really, really great piece that I encourage you to read about not just Lorraine's work, but also KG's work in Africa. And yeah, I've got the great privilege of introducing Lorraine onto the stage right now. I believe she has a walk-on song, so can we cue the walk-on song for her talk, The Currency of Change. Here she goes.
Okay. Well, thank you for that warm welcome. So my name is Marcel Lorraine. I am the founder of Bitcoin Dada. Essentially, what Bitcoin Dada is a non-profit organization that focuses on empowering the African female through financial education. And we leverage on Bitcoin for that, basically because of Bitcoin being permissionless, decentralized, and of course, open source. Now, today, or let me say this, I have been on Bitcoin Twitter for the last 1 year, going to 2 years, and the biggest debate that I have seen, rather, is if Bitcoin is a better tool when it comes to medium of exchange or a store of value. Now, for me today, I want to show you how, on this part of the country or the continent, how Bitcoin is actually appreciated and used. So it's a different kind of experience that you're going to have. So sit back and let's get into this. Okay.
A BBC investigation has uncovered widespread sexual abuse on tea farms, which supply some of the world's most popular brands, including Lipton. Dozens of women in Kenya told the BBC they've been forced into sex by their managers while working on plantations owned for decades by 2 British companies. Tom Odula has this report from Nairobi for BBC Africa Eye, a warning it does contain distressing scenes.
The tea grown here in Kenya's Rift Valley supplies some of the world's biggest brands. It's a multi-billion-dollar global industry, and we've discovered that sexual exploitation is rife. I spoke to dozens of women, all with a similar story.
It's torture. He wants to sleep with you, then you get a job.
When you say no, he forces himself on you, wanting to touch you.
It reached a point that I thought of suicide.
We sent an undercover reporter to pose as a worker. We are calling her Katie.
It was time for the general public to know what exactly happens in these companies.
She goes for a job interview with a notorious manager, John Chebochok. He's in charge of hundreds of workers on plantations owned by a Scottish firm, James Finlay and Company. He tells her to follow him into a hotel room, where he puts pressure on her to have sex with him. Members of the production team were stationed nearby and made a phone call to help her get out.
I was so scared and so shocked. It must be really difficult for the women.
James Finlay and Company says it immediately suspended John Chebochok and that it has reported him to Kenyan police. John Chebochok did not respond. The company has also launched its own investigation into whether its Kenyan operation has an endemic problem with sexual violence. The company supplies Starbucks and supermarket Sainsbury's and Tesco. Sainsbury's says these horrific allegations have no place in its supply chain. Tesco Supermarket says it's taking the claims extremely seriously. Starbucks did not provide a response. We also sent Katie undercover on plantations owned for years by multinational firm Unilever, where PG tips and Lipton teas are produced. She was pressured for sex by the divisional manager and her direct supervisor.
If you can satisfy me and satisfy you, we can proceed.
Unilever has known about this issue for more than a decade. In 2011, a report found sexual exploitation was prevalent on Unilever's plantations. The company introduced a zero-tolerance policy and other measures, but little appears to have changed. Unilever says it's deeply shocked and saddened by our allegations. While we were secretly filming, Unilever sold its tea operation in Kenya. The new owner, Lipton Teas and Infusions, says it has suspended the managers named in our investigation and has launched an independent inquiry. Tom Odula, BBC News.
Tragic, right? So I have to apologize if the clip that was shared was a bit traumatic for you, but unfortunately, that is the reality of majority of the African females as they try to climb up the social economic status. Now, the other day, as we speak currently, there's an ongoing protest in Kenya, which is called, End Femicide KE, which is currently happening in a bid to get our voices heard by the relevant authorities against what is happening currently, which is killings or femicide or domestic abuses of female, or rather Kenyan females. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm sharing this at a Bitcoin conference, right? The other day we were in Uganda to actually set base, set Bitcoin database. And this is just like one of the challenges that was actually shared. So.
We used to dig, especially coffee. But when time comes for harvesting it, and then it comes, take all the money. For us, we are women in the village.
Not sure what happened there, but she was just retaliating, or she was talking about what happens in the villages. She is actually a leader in one of the villages, and she was sharing about what happens there. So the majority of Kenyan population, or the African population, perform 70% of the agricultural labor, but they own less than 1% of the land and control very little of the income produced by their labor. So already we can see that there has been a problem, right? Some of the challenges faced by African females include limited access to formal financial institutions, gender pay gaps, lack of financial literacy and education, lack of substantial collateral. Now, some of these challenges, all these challenges go back to what we all as Bitcoiners know. Whoever controls your money controls you, right? So because the African female, is just like up to the recent years that we have that privilege of actually starting to participate in the in the financial sector. That means there's a huge gap when it comes to economic benefits or privileges. So this is the reason why you're seeing that we as African females lack access to formal financial institutions. There's gender pay gaps because if I don't have the proper education, when it comes to getting job opportunities, I'm going to get the lowest roles, right? So that means my payment will be lower than the other gender, right? So lack of substantial collateral, and then the other thing is women are not entitled to inheritance or can't own bank accounts in some cultures. So that is still persisting in some African communities. So why is it important for the women empowerment? I think when it comes to Bitcoin and trying to better the lives of communities, we normally focus on one side, right? But do we really look at the root? Do we really look at who we are leaving behind? And as Africans, if we need or if we're seeking the liberation that we claim to seek through Bitcoin, then we cannot leave the African female behind. And I'll explain to you the reason why. So you have a huge population, and almost 3/4 or half of it composes of females, right? The other half or quarter of it composes of the male gender. So that means half of the population is dependent on this particular small group. So that means we have scarcity of resources, less income resources. So in such communities or in such families or in such households, you will find poverty, generational poverty. After generations to come, you'll find the same poverty cases going on. You'll find that the community, even itself, the larger community is struggling, right? But when you empower the female or you empower the African female, that means you have, because we have now, we have opened doors to jobs, we have opened jobs to maybe businesses, better education, medical. That means the broader societal, we'll have like a broader societal progress, which in turn positively impacts poverty reduction and community development. Again, everybody knows if you empower or if you educate the African woman, rather the female, then you essentially educate the entire or empower the entire community. So how does Bitcoin come to help in this, with these issues? Now, like I mentioned before, Bitcoin is permissionless, right? It is an open source. It is also completely decentralized. Now, that means as African females, this is a platform for us. It has leveled the ground for us. So we do not need the permission, we do not need the documentation to actually start moving value from one person to the other. Financial sovereignty. The reason why most females die in, let me say, abusive relationships is because they depend on their partners when it comes to finances. So when you have a tool like Bitcoin, then you have your own privacy. You know, you can earn your own, you can own your own assets. So in a case where you have an abusive partner or an abusive family, then you're able to actually seek a way out, or you're able to move away from that. Empowering activism, and I have to highlight the HRF organization as well as Bitcoin for Fairness, what Anita Posh is doing. Bitcoin enables such initiatives to be actually be successful in that it removes the third party. Because most of the times when we find support or when we get support from such companies, they end up in the hands of a few. Well, that is the fiat world. So remittances gain, I believe you all know one of the reasons why Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies was or is well adopted in Africa is in terms of cross-border payments, remittances, and such. So how does it apply to females? I am not sure if you've walked around Cape Town or any other African country, you realize the small businesses are mostly run by females, right? In other instances, you get that Africans move from their countries looking for greener pastures in other countries, right? But the problem comes in when they need to send the money back home. So there's the extra problem of fees, high fees, accessing these institutions. So it becomes easier, let's say, for example, if you have a female who actually is working in such areas, and then they need to send back money. So their families plus them as individuals, the Bitcoin makes it easier. So entrepreneurship and micropayments, financial privacy, I have touched on that. Technology and innovation helps in terms of building products that can be used by females. And then again, lastly, of course, employment opportunities. I'll give an example of Bitcoin Dada. I came with my staff, so that is one way Bitcoin is helping. So initiative promoting women empowerment. So I did highlight this because I feel it's very important to highlight such initiatives. Why? There are so many initiatives that are trying to help the girl child, but very few get highlighted. So I feel as Bitcoiners or leaders in the space or whoever, it's important to always support such initiatives or even just talk about them to create awareness of what is happening. So as you can see, we have Usikimia, which is an initiative that helps with GBV. 1828 is helps onboard females on STEM. And then St. Martin's is a school back in Kenya that is run by a female, which helps the underprivileged in slums. And then the rest is mostly on the blockchain technology. I would like to highlight Umoja Village. Umoja Village is a village back in Kenya, which is women only. So, of course, no men are allowed. They do protect each other, support each other, and educate each other as well. The other thing, I can see a noisemaker there. Oh, she's left. Okay, so the other thing that I would say as leaders or as Bitcoiners, it is very important to highlight females who are actually doing something in the space. This is to actually encourage the coming generations, whether they are men or females. So we do have some of people, I believe you know some of these faces. We have Farida, we have Janet, Ojoma as well. Meron, unfortunately, could not be here with us, but I think Noble is around. And then the rest, we have the leader or the founder of Osikimia, Njeri, on the lower slide, third person. And I think it's very important as as females in this space, whether you're African or from the West, it is important for us to actually highlight each other's voices or, elevate each other's voices. Call to action. I'm not sure if it's my cat that did this slide. I can't remember putting this particular there. So you might be asking yourself, how do I come in? How do I help, right? If you're a builder and you're here, it is time to listen to the consumers of your product. If Africa has the biggest population in the world, rather, if the majority of the population are females, then you want to reach out to these females and ask them, does my product make sense to you? Can you relate with it? Can you use it? Can it make your life easier, right? Making room for more women in our organization. A very good example is what the Gridless team have done. So they have Janet as one of their co-founders. At this point, I am not sure what Eric's role is in that company. Janet is doing it all. So having such representations in such companies is very important. So encouraging women to take up leadership positions. So this is something that I clearly try to do with my team. We had Sharon taking up the stage today morning, so I'm very proud of Sharon for that. Supporting women empowerment or women-led initiatives, whether they're blockchain-related, Bitcoin-related, or not. I think it's very important as Bitcoiners. Satoshi Nakamoto gave us a really good gift, and I would say that is one of the most empathetic thing that he did. Setting up laws and policies that protect women from harassment and giving room for development. Now, as I end this presentation, my final remarks would be to you as Bitcoiners, whether Africans or not, let's have empathy. Like I said, when I started this when I started this presentation, on Bitcoin, Twitter is always about debate. Who uses Bitcoin better? Are you like, is it a store of value? Is it a medium of exchange and all that? I feel as Bitcoiners, it's important to actually try and understand why this particular group of people perceive Bitcoin as they do, instead of trying to push your ideologies onto people. And I think Femi has said this over and over again, and yeah, let's have empathy towards each other. And thank you for listening to my TED Talk.
Give it up for Lorraine Marcel. Fantastic, well done, that was amazing. Great way to bring it to a close as well. That was, yeah, filled me with despair and then back again with hope. So we're back in the game.